Tarek, thank you for doing this. Thank you for being a part of this interview with Interview Kickstart. So a quick introduction. Tarek is a software engineer in test at Twitter. Tarek has also been an instructor with Udemy for over 2 years and an instructor with Interview Kickstart. And saving the best for last, you're a US soccer referee. That's quite interesting. Are you still doing that?
Yeah.
Oh,
I just got my license in February.
Nice.
So I've been riffing for a few years right now.
Nice.
But officially, since February this year.
All right. So, Tarek, let's get started with, your journey as a test engineer. So, what gave you the conviction, or what were the few things that influenced your decision to go down this career path of, being a test automation engineer?
Yeah, it was kind of a coincidence, honestly. At the beginning, I had a few years of experience as a software engineer and then as a business analyst. This is in the Middle East, between Qatar and Jordan, before I moved to the US in 2013. I moved to the US in 2013. I did masters in cloud computing, and then I finished, and then I started looking for jobs. And at a career fair at my school, I saw this company, and they were hiring for SDET, software engineer and test. I wasn't familiar with this type of work ahead of time. I was familiar with the regular quality assurance engineer, but the engineer and test with its duties I wasn't familiar with. So I liked the role, I liked the company, because they were doing also cloud computing related softwares and toolings. So I applied, and they accepted me, and this is my first company in the US.
Okay.
The company name is Turbonomic.
Yeah.
So I started with them, and I loved it, and I stayed within the automation environment since then.
All right, great. So Tarek, back then, what were some of the, or actually, let's start talking about, your journey at Twitter. So what were the few resources that you used to prepare for your interview with Twitter? I think this was around 3 years back.
Correct. Yeah. So from the coding perspective, probably a lot of people are aware of LeetCode. It's somehow an industry standard right now for people to prepare for coding exercises, regardless of the role. And I use that a lot to brush up my knowledge in data structures and algorithms, and increase my speed in solving the questions. And from the behavioral side, it's just like reading a lot of articles online, researching topics, watching YouTube videos and various topics when it comes to how to test certain applications or system design in general. So I didn't rely on a specific website. I just relied on my own search on Google, whatever resource I find, either a video or an article. I was taking my time to read those.
Okay. Top of mind, do you remember any YouTube channels that really helped you, or any bloggers that really helped you? This is just so that, anyone watching this will also be able to reference that.
I can't tell you, because I wasn't following a specific blogger or a specific YouTube channel. Whatever I see after I search for something that matches what I'm searching for, then I was just investing time in watching these videos or reading those articles, and then making my own justifications out of them. But I wasn't following specific channels or blogs.
Yeah, you just go with the suggestions that come when you watch one particular video, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So, Tarek, what do you think is the difference in preparation for a test automation engineer role when you're transitioning from a tier 2 company to a tier 1 company? And I'm specifically asking this because you have experience cracking into a tier 1 company, into a Faang Plus company, in fact. So let us address how is the preparation different from a tier 2 to a tier 1, and then from a tier 1 to a Faang Plus company? What are the how are the interviews different, and so what makes the preparations different?
Yeah, so currently in the industry, based on my observation and experience, the components in interviews are almost the same. You have components related to coding. You have components in the interview related to your knowledge in testing in general, and then you have a component where they measure your own ability to think, to interact with others, to see if you are a culture fit in a company or not. So these are usually the three main components. Usually the system design or the test design falls under the umbrella of your testing skills as well. So these are the three main components based on my observation. And your preparation shouldn't matter if it's a tier 1 or tier 2 or whatever tier is the company, because the difference would be only about the complexity of the questions that you will get.
Okay.
Apparently, in Faang Plus companies, they have a higher bar. At least this is the assumption in the industry, which means, let's say, for example, in coding questions, they will ask much harder questions than, let's say, startups. But that's a very vague assumption, because some startups, they really ask very complicated questions. So that's why you shouldn't rely on this assumption to prepare only for very easy questions when you apply for a startup or a non-Faang Plus company. So it varies. It varies based on the company, based on the person, based on the team that interviews. So my own recommendation is not to differentiate between the different tiers of companies. Always prepare as much as you can for these components of interviews, because you never know the complexity of the questions that you will get.
How is, can you tell us a little bit about your interview rounds while interviewing with Twitter?
So Twitter aligns with the industry when it comes to interviews for test-related roles, when it comes to these three components that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Again, it's the coding exercise, your knowledge in testing in general, that includes test design and sometimes system design. And also the third component is if you are a culture fit in the company or not.
Yeah.
So we interview in those three different aspects, and we cover these three different components. Sometimes we do 2 interviews in coding, 2 in test design and test knowledge, and then usually 1 in culture fit. Sometimes it's 1 coding exercise and 2 system design, sometimes 2 system design and 1 coding exercise. So sometimes we change that based on the role itself, if it was a senior role, staff role, or a junior or an intern. But the gist of it is that we cover those 3 components that I mentioned.
Got it. So, what are the typical job responsibilities of a software test engineer? And does your journey at Twitter, does Twitter stick to those typical job responsibilities? So let's first talk about what are the day-to-day responsibilities of a software test or a test automation engineer?
Sometimes it varies based on the company, but in Twitter we have 3 roles when it comes to test engineering in general. We have the manual QA engineer role, which they work with teams to test certain features or projects. They do only manual testing, and there is no coding or automation expectation from them.
Okay.
So that's one role. The other role is test engineer, and that role acts as a kind of a hybrid role in Twitter, which means you have expectation from you to manually test certain features or projects, and at the same time, it's expected from you to automate test cases. You work closely with your engineering teams to incorporate those test cases in the build pipeline and just find ways to leverage and make use of these test cases that you automate. So that's the second role, a hybrid role between manual QA and automation. And the third role that we have, which is a complete automation role. You work with your teammates as test automators or automation engineers, to be more specific, to build automation frameworks, to build infrastructure, to build toolings that will help other team members. So these are the three main roles that we have in Twitter, and I saw that in the industry also. It always fall under these three. Sometimes it's a mix between multiple roles. Sometimes it's only one, but usually when we talk about test engineering, it's one of these three. In Twitter, we have those three.
Got it. So
differentiated.
You're saying that there is not a lot of difference in the role of a test engineer at Twitter and other companies. When I say other companies, I'm also talking about the non-tier 1 companies. Like, say someone's working at a tier 2 company and then they move to a Twitter. What is is there any difference in their job responsibilities or in way things get done?
Really, so based on my experience, because I did that, I moved from a startup to Twitter.
Yeah.
I didn't see much of difference when it comes of applying your own knowledge and your testing mindset. The testing mindset that you have, you will apply it anywhere.
Got it.
Because in general, what we do is that we test software, regardless of what we use to test. Are we using our own hands to do manual testing? Are we writing code to automatically test this application? But in general, we are testing software. And this testing mindset, we will take it and apply it anywhere we go. The differences are the set of tools that we work with, the programming language that we will use, the internal toolings that the company use to do different things. So this is the only thing that usually changes between companies. The tech stack and anything around it, which will take some time to learn. But after you learn and you get good at it, the same testing mindset that you have, you will apply it, and of course you will improve on it.
So since you're talking about this, Tariq, what are the different automation tools or frameworks that you built while working at Twitter?
Yeah, so I didn't build personally testing frameworks. I wasn't part of the team that built frameworks. I used frameworks that are built by my other teammates. So in Twitter, I used two frameworks. The first one is based on an open source JavaScript framework called Test Cafe. It's somehow popular right now. It doesn't use Selenium. It uses another technology as a proxy to leverage bringing up browsers without the need of drivers, like what Selenium relies on. So we used that for a while to test specifically only web, and then there was a team decision and an org decision to build another framework that is based on Java. We use Selenium and Appium, and then the team, very smart team, they created some kind of an abstraction layer where you write the test case only once, and then you can execute that test case on web and mobile at the same time with certain configurations that you need to play with. So this is the other framework that I'm using in Twitter. Previously, in the previous company, we built a framework. Also, we transitioned. The first framework that we built, it was using Robot framework, which is again an open source keyword-driven framework where you can write test cases and keywords either in Python or Java. And then after some troubles that we had with the framework, we transitioned to Java plus Selenium to build automated tests for the web application that we have. Yeah, so these are the experiences that I have when it comes to building and using frameworks.
So what's the typical team structure of a test engineering team at Twitter? You did touch upon this earlier with another question. I just wanted you to elaborate on that a little bit. You mentioned that there are 3 types of test engineering roles. How does it fit? How does that apply in Google's test engineering team?
So so I'll add on what I covered when it comes to the 3 different roles that we have. So the org has these 3 different roles, and that doesn't mean that each role work with each other. They have a specific engineering manager. No. So each engineering manager that we have in the organization, they have different reports with different backgrounds. So an engineering manager can have test engineers plus SDETs plus manual engineers. So, but we are divided based on what engineering org we are belonging to. For example, do we belong to ads and revenues, or do we belong at consumer-facing features and applications? So this is how the team is divided, and that's it actually. Yeah, this is what I wanted to cover.
All right. So, I have heard that, especially for ML roles, it's easier when you're in the organization working as a software engineer to transition, to make that jump in a Faang company. It's not so easy when you're applying as a fresh software engineer and, trying to get into an ML role in an Apple or a Google, in a Twitter, etc. I don't know how true that is. I've heard that from different instructors, but do you think that also applies to test engineering? Or is it easier? Is it not that difficult to make that transition to a test engineer? So, for example, if you're not in a Faang Plus company and you want to, take up a role as a test engineer, is it easy to, to get that role, or do you have to get into a Twitter in a different role and then make that internal transition?
So you're describing someone who would want to join the test
engineering team
at a Faang Plus company.
Correct.
And in order to reach to that role, they join as a different role.
Yeah, is that the case?
Then transition within the company.
Yeah, is that the case? Because I've heard that's the case with ML engineering roles.
Machine learning.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to comment on this because it could be the case. It couldn't be the case. Every person's experience is different. I'm sure that it happened and it worked with a lot of people. We have, for example, people in the company that branch out.
Yeah.
So we have a branching out strategy or option where people who are not happy with their current team or role, they can branch out to completely different roles. So for example, if you are a product manager, you can branch out to be an engineering manager, or you can branch out to be a test engineer.
And this is at Twitter?
This is at Twitter, and this also applies to other companies. In Meta, for example, in Google and Apple, all of them have the same option. Usually it is supported by the leadership and the managers of these companies, because they prefer to keep the talents within the company rather than them leaving and going to other companies.
Yeah, sure.
So this option exists in companies. But how easy it is it complicated? It could be, because when you branch out from a role to a different role, it's like you are interviewing for that role. So it's not like you are within the company, then you get a safe pass and then you will transition to that new team easily. No, you will go through the same process by doing those interviews.
All right.
So if you go to Twitter, for example, as like a customer success manager, completely not technical, and you want to branch out to a test engineering role, this could happen. This is possible, definitely, but you need to have the skills to pass the interview as if you were outside of Twitter applying to Twitter.
Got it. What is like the career roadmap for a test engineer's role at Twitter or any of the top tier companies? After being a test engineer, a senior test automation engineer, what comes next? What are the different possibilities for someone in this role?
Yeah. So usually it's you decide if you want to maintain or stay in an IC role or individual contributor role, or you want to go to the management track. So if you stay within the IC role, then after senior, for us we have staff, we have senior staff, and then I think we have principal too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but for example, we have only less than 5 people as staff engineers. We don't have senior staff. It's a very senior level to get to.
Yeah.
So usually, you just like keep progressing in this career path, and then of course your responsibilities change as you keep growing. I know that the same applies to Google also, and Apple and Meta as well.
All right. So, does working for a Twitter, a Facebook, a Meta, Apple, all of these companies, does it give you like a huge advantage for your career or the way forward? Do companies really love candidates coming from Twitter or from, any of the Faang companies?
It definitely is. That's the case because when you apply to any company, it's a matter of you marketing yourself, marketing your own image in order to attract recruiters or attract whoever is trying to recruit, right? And then if you have a really good company that has strong engineering inside of it, if you have that experience, then definitely you will become attractive to recruiters. So it definitely helps. For example, myself, because I have Twitter in my resume and in my say LinkedIn page, I get a lot of recruiting calls and emails saying that we see that you are in Twitter, we like your experience, blah blah. We would love to have a conversation with you. I'm sure that applies to my colleagues and from other companies who are well known worldwide. So it definitely helps. That doesn't mean that, of course, if you don't have that company in your name, in your resume, you wouldn't get calls. But what matters eventually is that you market yourself well, and then you make sure that you have an attractive profile.
Yeah. So, you're a test engineer. Everyone has this, this passion for what they do. So I want to know what makes test engineering more unique than all the other technical domains. If you were to give us,
Yeah, definitely. So I personally love interacting with people.
Yeah.
And I love the exposure to different parts of the SDLC, the software development lifecycle.
Yeah.
And I think one of the few roles that give you this exposure is the test engineer, because you interact with everyone closely. You interact with the person who defines the requirements. Usually it's the PM.
Yeah.
You interact closely with the engineering team who build the features. You interact closely sometimes with the users, and you wear the hat of a user in order to test the application. If you are also an automation role, that gives you also exposure to the source code. You understand how the application works also from the ground up. That gives you also the ability to write code. Sometimes you have the freedom to automate tools that will help you do your work better and more efficiently. So yeah, it's multiple things. It's if I want to summarize my answer, it's the ability to network with so many people within the project lifecycle, and you have the ability to to approach and work with the application or the features that you test from the user perspective. And at the same time, you have the ability to write code, you have exposure to the source code, you can contribute to it, you can write your own tools to make your life more efficient. So these are the things that I love most about being a test engineer.
All right. So Tariq, you mentioned that you need to have this ability to network. You need to you need to enjoy having conversations with people, and that's also why you love doing what you do. How important, or how is this tested in an interview? So I'm talking about the non-technical aspects. Can you touch upon a little bit about that? How is that tested for in a interview for a test engineering role, and how important that component is, the non-technical component?
Yeah, definitely. So in all of the different components that we talked about, 3 components: coding, testing knowledge and design, and culture fit.
Yeah.
Every one of them, you will be graded and you will be tested for communication.
Okay.
So, for example, in the coding round, are you able to communicate well with your interviewer? Are you able to understand the question, communicate back your thought process? You discuss the question as if you are discussing it with your teammate. So we look always for these signs when we interview people. We don't want just coders who don't communicate with their teammates. That's for the coding rounds. For the system design, testing, design rounds, also there is no coding there. So it's pure communication and testing your knowledge and how would you apply that knowledge in the question that we give you. And this back and forth communication between the interviewer and the interviewee. Are you able to communicate clearly? Do you ask good questions? Do you answer in a good way, clear way?
Yeah.
So these things, they give us indication about the interviewee. If they are good communicators, they would be really a good fit for the team or not. And then the third component that is mainly focusing on your character, your culture fit, if you really will be a positive addition to the team or you will be a burden to the team. So in those interviews, you really just need to market yourself. You need to show off that you are passionate about what you do. You're compassionate towards your teammates. You love interacting with them. You have those soft skills that interviewers are looking for. So it's very important. We had a lot of times that we rejected interviewees because they didn't have that part. Even though they were strong engineers, still we rejected them because they didn't have the soft skills that will benefit us as a team.
Thanks a lot, Tariq. This was great. That's a wrap from me. Do you have any closing words? What's your takeaway advice for any aspiring software test engineer? Like one golden advice.
Yeah, definitely. So first, trust in yourself that you can do well in interviews. Always think big. Big things will happen to you. Always apply as much as you can. It's just a law of numbers. The more applications you send, the more the odds that you will get calls back. Make sure that you have attractive profiles, whether it's your resume, it's your LinkedIn page, your website, GitHub page, whatever it is. Make sure it's polished, it looks good. Make sure to reach out to recruiters. Always brush up on your knowledge when it comes to these 3 components that we talked about in interviews, and always prepare. Preparation makes perfect, as they say. And whenever there is a will, there is a way. And if you aim for something, you will definitely do it. Good luck to everyone who's listening. And thank you, Nikita.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tariq, for taking the time out. I know it's late there. Thank you. Bye-bye.
My pleasure.